moving ahead to next year, there will be a long list of Republicans in Kansas who are going to be interested in being your next governor. We already know that list includes current Secretary of State Scott Schwab. You will have other people who will get into the race. I know that there's also Doug Billings in the race. You will have other names discussed. Charlotte O'Hara is also in the race. Dayton Moore is being floated out there. Former Governor Jeff Collier is being floated out there. There are other folks as well. Ty Masterson, he's the Senate president who is being talked about as someone who may run for governor. There will be probably half a dozen people at least on the Republican side who will run for governor. On the Democratic side in Kansas, the question has been, who's that going to be to replace Laura Kelly and try to keep the Democrat win streak going? And the thought was it was going to be David Toland. David Toland is somebody who is her lieutenant governor and, is younger and someone who is thought to be maybe that heir apparent to Laura Kelly. Well, it's not clear that he is interested or going to be the guy anymore. And then yesterday, Tony's Kansas City reported, and great job by Tony, that there is a major push for Sharice Davids to run for governor of Kansas. Now, she, of course, is the congresswoman here in the 3rd Congressional District, and she has been since she beat Kevin Yoder in 2018, and she is steamrolled through this district every single time by a pretty wide margin. And now there's a push to basically say, hey, and this is actually great strategy by the Democrats. Not that I think that she could do the job as governor. I'll get to that here coming up in a second. But they believe that they can win this 3rd district even if she's not on the ballot. And they're probably right to feel that way. You get generic D versus generic R in this district right now. The generic Democrat is going to have a ton of money because the Democrats fund their candidates very well. And we know where Johnson County's at right now. And with Donald Trump being in the White House, that is beneficial to the Democrat Party in maintaining a seat in a midterm election. So if there's ever a time to transition off of Sharice Davids and feel good about maintaining that seat, it's literally coming up in 2026. Because there's that, we can't stand Trump faction of Johnson County that will turn out in droves for no matter who the Democrat candidate is. You always have the party that's not in power who gets some juice in the midterms. That will naturally happen. And they will have an edge. And there's also no evidence the Republican Party has its act together with any kind of a candidate who's got a chance. In Washington, D.C., they're not really funding this 3rd district a whole lot anymore. Prashanth Reddy was the guy a couple of years ago, or last year, I guess it was, and it wasn't obvious to me he got a whole lot of support from anybody. Monetarily speaking, from the big donors and the big PACs in Washington, D.C. They don't really view this as a swing district anymore. So until they do, they're not going to fund it. So if you can move Sharice Davids into a place where she can win a statewide race, suddenly you might have something to work with, and then you can backfill the 3rd district seat. Now, the problem is Sharice Davids couldn't hide as governor. She can hide in Congress. She can hide as the representative for the 3rd district. Media will bump into her once in a while. They'll treat her with kid gloves and the whole thing. You can't do that as the governor of the state. Now, don't get me wrong. She would try, and they would protect her, and the media would do its job. But you still can't do it like you can as one of 435 in Congress. It's just impossible. And then suddenly she would have to get in there and debate. She would have no choice. She's gotten away without debating for the last couple of cycles. She does these one-off debates at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday in front of 7 people in Olathe or something like that. She'll do some of those, but she's not debating on TV. Her first cycle in 2018, she did one debate with Kevin Yoder on Fox 4 that was only on a stream on Facebook Live a week before the election when early voting was already underway. So, but when you're running for governor for the first time especially, you can't get away with that. So that would be edge Republicans. But she'd have a massive turnout in this part of the state. She'd have obviously a ton of support, name ID in this part of the state. And that might carry her. I mean, it carried Laura Kelly, right? I mean, it's not crazy. It carried Laura Kelly. Why would it not carry her? If she uses that Laura Kelly playbook, she can win. So then the question becomes this. If you're the Republicans, what do you do on the other side? You got to have somebody who doesn't get blown out in Johnson County like Derek Schmidt did. And Kobach did before that. You know, the Derek Schmidt playbook was basically, we're going to run the Trump playbook, run it up in the rural areas, and you know what? Johnson County, it's a lost cause anyway. Only Donald Trump draws out certain people for presidential years. It's not a knock on Derek Schmidt. He ain't Trump. In a lot of ways, he's not Donald Trump. You can't copy the Trump playbook when there are Trump voters and then there are Republican voters. They don't necessarily always turn out for elections where Trump's not on the ballot. That's actually one of the problems the Republican Party has right now. They've got this growing tent. They've got young voters coming in. They've got, frankly, more voters of different backgrounds coming in. Blacks, Asians, Latinos, all coming into the party. But they've got to figure out how to turn those Trump voters into consistent Republican voters in other races. So if you think some Kansas Republican is going to be like, yeah, I'm just going to get all Trump's people to turn out in an off year, you're not. None of them are Trump. No offense to them, but they're not. So who can actually limit the damage in places like Johnson County, Kansas? Is it a Scott Schwab? Is it a Jeff Collier? I mean, those guys are from here. Is it a Dayton Moore, who has obviously no political background, but will lean into leadership, will lean into name ID, will have appeal in Johnson County amongst a lot of people who will like his leadership style and obviously know him from his massive success with the Royals, winning a World Series? Does that make sense? Who can dent, not win Johnson County, but who can dent whoever the Democrat nominee is, who can dent their lead? That's the question that the party should be asking itself as they look ahead to this possibility of Sharice Davids maybe running for governor per Tony's Kansas City. On the text line, Pete, if you're Dayton Moore, do you shift and run for the open congressional seat if Sharice runs for governor? No. Listen, a guy like Dayton Moore's a leader. As a freshman member of Congress, I mean, look at Mark Alford. He's now a sophomore, and he's made great strides. But do you know how long it takes to become a leader in the House, working your way up through that system? It takes you potentially, I mean, Mike Johnson kind of fell into it because he was like the seventh pick to be the Speaker of the House. But for the most part, you got to spend at least 6 to 8 years, probably up to 10, to be in a place where you can lead anybody. Governors can lead the day they get elected. In Congress, you're just one of 435. You're just trying to figure the whole thing out. And I still don't see a path for a Republican in the 3rd District in 2026 when Republicans are probably going to be in a spot to lose some seats. I don't want that to happen, but that's just usually the ebbs and flows of how this stuff works in a midterm where one party has all the power. So I don't think you do that.